Mocha. Nice to have you with us as we kick off a broadcast day one of the NCAA tournament. Hi, everybody. Yours truly, Christopher Russo. The great Bob Wenzel is here, too, with Colin Schmeling, Eddie Erickson. Our trusty intern is Matt as we take you through the first day of the NCAA on this Thursday after the playing games on Tuesday and Wednesday. 8 games this afternoon, 8 games tonight, 8 games tomorrow afternoon, 8 games tomorrow night. And this first round will be concluded. Then we go to round 2 over the weekend as we take you home on a busy day. As usual, I think it's the 4th year in a row he's done it. It may be 3rd, but I believe it's his 4th year in a row. Former coach of Rutgers, Jacksonville, coached the Nets for a long time. One of the great players in the history of Long Island Scholastics at Islip High School in the late 60s. He played at Rutgers. He's our good buddy Bob Wenzel.
Oh, I love coming here when you say all those nice things. You do that to everybody, don't you?
Yeah, I sure do. And you told me to write it just like that. I wrote it perfectly. I said it perfectly. Yeah, fun to have you. Good to have you with us, Bob, once again. How are you, buddy?
I'm
okay?
great. Couldn't be happier to see you, man.
You got 8 hours now, you and me. So we got the M&Ms for you. You got your little milkshake at 5:30. You should be in pretty good shape.
Oh, I'll tell you need that blast to keep up with you.
Oh, no, you don't. Keep up with the games is more like it. All right, we have, let's give you an update with the games first. There are 2 games in progress. Bob will break them down after I give you the scores. Kansas leads Penn. They trail 21-11. This is the first round game against the 116 scenario. This game is in Wichita, and Kansas is up 33-26. That's the first round game there. And Gonzaga has had a tough time shaking University of North Carolina Greensboro. They just scored 11:25 to go. We can go to this game if it gets close. We'll see. They're the 4 seed Gonzaga, and Gonzaga currently right now leads. It's the West Region first round. I believe this is in Boise, and they're up 49-44 as UNCG just scored. So, Bob, these 2 games first. Gonzaga, obviously tall shoes to fill after last year, and they've struggled here against North Carolina Greensboro.
Yeah, good. North Carolina Greensboro did a great job. The coach is a UNC guy, so they run a lot of that same kind of trapping defense and very aggressive denial defense, and they've done a really good job. I think they shocked Gonzaga earlier in the game. Gonzaga, of course, is much more talented, and when they get the ball inside to Tilly and Williams, that's going to be the story of this game.
And they hold opponents to Spartans due to only 63 points a game, and, right now Gonzaga is not going crazy with points. About halfway through the second half, they have 49. They also hold opponents to a 41% shooting percentage, so a good effort here so far for Greensboro. Yeah. Probably won't mean much with 5 minutes to go, but they've done a nice job.
I think they've done a nice job so far, but the talent will prevail in a game like this. Gonzaga's been there. They're in the Final Four last year. Mark Few goes to the tournament every single year. He's been a high seed in the second half of his career. Earlier, they were the definition of the Cinderella team, right? But now they're usually a higher seed than everybody they play, and he's used to coaching teams where the underdog, the previous Cinderella like he was, gets playing well, and then eventually.
So he knows how to deal. He knows how to deal with that.
Yeah.
Now I haven't followed Gonzaga. I know they lost a game at home this year to St. Mary's. How many players do they have who are contributors, rotation players from a year ago? Do you know top of your head?
Yeah, 2 guys. Well, Tilly and Williams are the 2 inside guys, and Williams was their best player in the tournament last year. But they lost a lot. They lost.
They lost the number 1 pick, who was a good player.
Yeah,
the freshman,
Nigel Goss, and they lost a bunch of guys.
Yep.
And so they're not as good as they were last year. I don't think there's any doubt about that, but they're plenty good, and I think that the cream will rise to the top in this game.
All right, Greensboro down by 6, have the ball, and now it's they got a foul, so they go to the free throw line. Meanwhile, Kansas, the 1 seed Kansas, I think a lot of people think they might be a little vulnerable in a very tough bracket in the Midwest because they have Duke and Michigan State later on. They do lead Penn. We thought Penn may have been lowly, not seeded properly, and I think for the most part they have been, they probably don't deserve a 16. That's where they stood, and that's where they get Kansas. Led early, down by 7 at the half. You would figure that Penn needed to play from ahead in this game, and now they got to play from behind.
Yeah, and that's a good point, Chris, because that's going to be really, really tough. Because Kansas is winning like they always win. They win their conference championship every single year for the last 17, 18 years, something like that. Crazy. But this team is different. This team, Devontae Graham is a 4-year guy, okay? Mihailik is a 4-year guy. They don't have the super super-duper one-and-done types. They don't have great size on this team. Frequently, Kansas plays with 4 guards in the game, and they like to crank it up from three-point range. So it's a different kind of Kansas team than we've seen in the last 4 or 5 years, and yet they still find a way to win, still find a way to be a number 1 seed in the tournament. I give Donahue a lot of credit, the coach of Penn. He was the coach of Cornell several years ago.
Never worked at BC for whatever the reason.
No, never worked there, but I mean, he's an Ivy League type guy, and at Cornell, I mean, think of this. He took them to the Sweet 16. I mean, that is unbelievable. So he did a good job. The Ivy League now has a tournament, a semi-tournament. Only 4 of the 8 teams make it. So, you know, they won it, and they beat Harvard, and they deserve to be where they are.
And right now they have the ball down 7, a minute and a half into the second half. The winner of this game will get the Seton Hall NC State game, which will be on a little later on for us today in the second half of that Boise doubleheader. That's the 8-9 game in that Midwest bracket. All right, 2 finals in. One, nothing much to talk about. Tennessee, Rick Barnes, never a lot of success in the NCAA. Yes, he went to one Final Four while at Texas, but Providence, Clemson prior to that, lots of disappointments. He went to Tennessee. He's been there now 2 years. He's done a very, very good job. Tennessee had a great league record in the SEC, won the regular season, or they tied Auburn. They may have been a game behind, but they had a great regular season, and then, of course, lost to Kentucky last Sunday. No issues here today against a Wright State team out of the Horizon. They buried them, Bobby, 73-47. Tennessee is a pretty good basketball team.
They're very good, and the interesting thing with them is they have pretty good balance. Grant Williams is an inside player, very physical, undersized for a 5, but really more of a power 4 type player. Schoenfield is a great outside shooter, as is Turner, and those are the 3 guys that carried them today. He has done a remarkably good job. Preseason prognostications had Tennessee near the bottom of the 14-team SEC, and this year's SEC was very, very good. They didn't have a premier Kentucky team. I mean, they still have Kentucky, but not one of Kentucky's best.
Right.
But he did a remarkable job having them play old-style basketball, very, very together team, very teamwork-oriented guys and physical. And they did a great job during the regular season, and here, you know, they are obviously going to the second round.
Now, why has he had so much trouble in the NCAA tournament with all these other teams?
Well, you know, it's just the draw. It's just the draw. You know, I think that he relies on the system that he uses, and sometimes in the NCAA tournament, when it's a one-and-done situation, you got to do something different. For instance, okay, lots of coaches take a guy out in the first half if he has 2 fouls, right? Because they want to make sure that he plays the rest of the game. But in the NCAA tournament, I mean, a bounce here, a 3 there, and a mistimed play there, and you're done. So I think in certain kinds of situations, I'm not saying that he does this, but this is an example of what happens NCAA versus regular season. Now you leave that guy in, okay, because you got to stay within 6 points of the team that you're behind. You can't take your best player out with 2 fouls. You got to just hope that he doesn't get his 3rd.
And maybe sometimes he does system instead of actually goes by feel. His pants and his feel.
You got to go by feel.
All right, so Tennessee does advance, though. They will play the winner of Miami and Loyola of Chicago. The Ramblers won their conference tournament. Bob has seen them 3 times in person. He loves them today. We'll get to that game a little bit later on. I love them today, too, so we'll have to wait and see. Meanwhile, Rhode Island today in a very, very good opening round game in Pittsburgh, and Rhode Island had a very tough time getting to this game because, remember, they couldn't fly because of the 18-inch blizzard that hit the Rhode Island and Boston area on Tuesday. They bust to New York and then bust to Pittsburgh. So they had a lot of tough travel, plus play the early game. And they had played on Sunday. Let's not forget that 8-10 tournament. And they had to work hard today against Oklahoma. That Trae Young is great. Great passer. As Bobby told me watching this game together, he reminds him a lot of Steph Curry. Got a lot of Steph Curry in him. He may be quicker than Steph Curry if that's possible. And, Oklahoma had a chance today. Finally succumbed in overtime as Rhodey got the job done. 83-78, first round game in Pittsburgh. Overall, the best game we've seen, and top to bottom, just an excellent 45 minutes of basketball.
No doubt about it. And Trae Young is a signature player in college basketball this year. I think early in the year, other than the FBI investigation, he was the guy creating the most news. For most of the season, he led the nation in scoring and assists. Today, he was most impressive with his assists. He had 28 points and 7 assists in this game. In my estimation, he made some bonehead plays at the end of this game. He took 2 threes, deep threes, like almost half court early in the shot clock, and he didn't need it. He was getting to the basket. He has a very interesting way of using his off arm to create space between him and his defensive player when he's going to the basket.
Could be called for offensive fouls easily.
It hasn't been called all year, so he's getting away with it. So, I mean, he did a tremendous job. But
some spottiness there late in the game, though.
Late game, I think he made some decisions that were not good. Now, he's been doing that all year long. He has a lot of turnovers as well as points and assists. He's a dominate type player. Rhode Island, on the other hand, is a team-oriented. They spread the wealth around. You're not sure who's going to be the star of the game. And in this instance, E.C. Matthews was a star of the game. They had a 2-point lead, clock running down, 27 seconds. They have to shoot. He makes a 3 to give them a 5-point edge late in that game in the overtime, and that's how they won the game. They did make 11 threes in the game, which is a lot. I mean, you need to make 8, 9 threes most of the time to be winning games at a high level in college basketball. They made 11 in this game, and that was a very, very good thing for him.
And Rhode Island, by the way, had a chance to win in regulation, and they missed a putback, as Bob Wenzel called it, barely rimmed out, and then they get into the overtime. The question about Oklahoma is, we all know that they were very highly debated all week about whether they should have been in the tournament or not. Oklahoma State specifically with them, they were a 10 seed. The great Barkley line on Sunday. Geez, if you wonder about how a team finishes, what were they, a 1 seed before? That was funny. That was funny when he said that on Sunday to Blair, to Rasmussen, the tournament chairman. Did Oklahoma, in your eyes, justify the committee's input or inclusion in this tournament by playing such a competitive game?
No. I don't think, even if they won this game, based on the way things are done, I just think a team that loses 8 out of 10 of the last conference games, even though it's a good conference, the Big 12, I still think that's it bothers me a little bit that a team like that's included. However,
do you think Kruger brought this up all week to get his team up?
No doubt about it. And I don't think, even if he didn't bring it up, the kids are so aware of what's going on out in the world right now. I mean, I think they were trying to prove something today, and I think they played well. I mean, it was a very, very good game, a very intense game.
No question.
You have Kruger, who's taken 3 or 4 teams to the Final Four, against Danny Hurley, who's at the beginning of his career. Wagner and now Rhode Island, and one of the bright new lights in college basketball.
Maybe a UConn coach down the road. Who knows?
Yeah, could be. And I mean, it went right down, overtime game. It was a great game, and Rhode Island deserved to win it.
A tough travel for them. Maybe that took a little something out of them. So we'll see. 57-54. Gonzaga, 7.5 minutes to go against North Carolina Greensboro. We will keep on top of that in the next 3-4 minutes and hear those last 3 or 4 minutes. Bobby, go ahead.
I really think that this is an interesting game because UNCG is mixing up their defenses now. They were going man. Now they've switched to a zone defense. Gonzaga is a team that is very, very good on their inside-outside play. But the 2 inside guys are the ones who dominate in this game, or you would like them to dominate, and they haven't done it completely.
And right now they just missed a 3. That's going to be an over-the-back foul on Gonzaga. And it'll be Greensboro ball here, down by 3. 6.5 minutes to go. We'll keep an eye on it. The Rhode Island winner will most likely play Duke. Good start for the Blue Devils today. 11-5 over Iona. They're 2.5 minutes in. So Rhodey would play Duke if Duke wins, and that game would be Saturday. Penn and Kansas. It's 46-37 Kansas. 5 minutes into the second half, and shortly we'll see Loyola Chicago and Miami. Back to this Gonzaga game. Bit of a surprise here that Greensboro has played this deep into the game, now with the ball with a chance to tie, Bobby.
Gonzaga's going man-to-man defense here, and they like to switch things on the perimeter. When you switch, there is sometimes a situation where a big is guarding a small on the perimeter, and you're able to get a 3 off like they just did, and then you have a mismatch underneath with your big on a guard. So what's happened for UNCG there, their coach is smiling at this play because they did get the mismatch. They took the 3 and missed, but they got the offensive rebound.
And, a lot of foul trouble. It went off his back knee, so they're going to call it Gonzaga ball here in this spot. We'll get to the last few minutes of this game for a live update and the play-by-play. Again, Iona trails 9. They do have the ball early against Duke. Iona's going to go up and down with Duke, and that's not the way you want to beat them in these kind of games. Duke's going to score 85 points against anybody.
No doubt about it. They are good on offense, not so much at the other end.
Now we take a timeout here on this busy program. Just getting started. We got Wenzel all day. Keep us going. We continue here on Mad Dog Unleashed.